Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and today I am bringing you part 1 on my guide to set building in Pokemon. Now this guide is meant to basically be a tutorial for all of you who watch my videos on the thought process and creative process that I go through every time I try to create new sets for Pokemon or build a team in the Pokemon world for competitive battles. Overall, I'm hoping that this video can actually be really educational for a lot of people and hopefully, prove to be something that will really have an impact on the way you guys and gals play this game and have fun with it. But this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I'm really happy that I finally decided to, sit down and get this done. I'm thinking this series is going to be maybe 3 or 4 parts, but today's topic is basically understanding the different roles in battle. And this is something I feel like is often overlooked by a lot of people because they just want to use, the most powerful Pokemon, the ones that like other websites will tell you how to use, like, oh, if you bring an Infernape and just have it close combat everything, it'll pretty much win, which might be the case. Actually, a lot of the time that was the case in 4th gen, but that's not exactly what I'm trying to get forward through these videos. It's basically me trying to help you all be more self-sufficient, I guess, in your battles and team building. Because I always get messages all the time saying, hey Rykard, is this a good set? Or hey Rykard, can you make a set for this Pokemon? And in all honesty, you don't need me to do that. I'm just here to provide you entertainment on certain things that I find to be fun. But with this video, hopefully a lot of you will be able to be better at doing those things for yourself and finding out for yourself what might work in a battle. But we're just going to go right into I'm going to quote myself right here and saying that as far as Pokemon goes, I believe that any Pokemon can fill any role in any battle. Some are just a lot better than others in certain positions, and some are just overlooked because there are similar Pokemon that achieve the same results with less effort. And I feel really stupid putting this as a slide in this video, but I think this holds a lot of truth in this game. A lot of people, don't understand why some people play NU, because why would you want to use Pokemon that are weak, or why would you want to use Pokemon that aren't as good as, say, everything in OU? And to me, that's kind of, in a way, insulting to the game. Obviously, the creators of Pokemon put all these Pokemon in the game because they thought they're going to be unique and thought they're going to be something new to bring to the table that has not, been brought in the previous installment of the game before. And along with that are the people that say something along the lines of, like, why would you use something like, I don't know, Watchog to stall something when a Blissey, which is a normal type, same thing with Watchog, can do that 5,000 times better. And in all honesty, while that is true, that doesn't mean that Watchog is a completely useless Pokemon. It just means that something else can do it better and requires the player to not really have to put in a lot of effort to achieve that goal. And personally, I'm all about making this game more challenging for myself than it actually needs to be. I know that that's really stupid for a lot of, or that a lot of people probably think that's really stupid, but I think that's a lot of fun and partly why I've grown so attached to competitive battling over the years. But basically, we're going to right now take a look at what all these different roles are in battle, and I'm going to characterize these in a way that I feel is appropriate. I know that there are some other different classifications that have been used before, but I'm just going to use, the terms that I've came up with for the sake of this video. So let's get started on what are the different roles in a battle. So to me, the first and most important role that any Pokemon can play is that of the attacker. Now, to me, the attackers, or as some people kind of refer to them as sweepers, I believe, are the ones that are basically there to be dealing the most damage to your opponent through big physical or special hits. These Pokemon often, have high physical or special attack, and also have high speed to go along with that to allow them to outspeed any opposing threats and be able to get off their super powerful moves against them. These attackers also generally have various moves to give them really good type coverage. For example, if you take like a Starmie, it can learn Surf or Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Psychic, a lot of different type moves that can be super effective against a lot of different types that your opponent might have on his or her team. And basically, these are just the Pokemon that are offensive. You don't really need to worry about defense with them because you just want them to get into the hits. So generally that usually translates to them being very frail, but some Pokemon, fortunately enough, can have the ability to take 1 or 2 hits before they're taken out. But these Pokemon, as I said, are just meant to be offensive. They can potentially sweep your opponent's team provided that they have the type coverage and speed, and they are often one of the more important Pokemon that you want to take out on your opponent's team when you start the battle because you know that they're going to be a problem. Also, a few items that will benefit the attackers for future reference are that of a Life Orb, Expert Belt, Choice Scarf, Choice Band, or Choice Specs. And these are all great items to use along with your attackers to allow them to be dealing the most damage as possible and prove to be the most effective in battle. Secondly, we have what I'm going to refer to as the defenders, who are basically the exact opposite of the attackers that we just talked about. While the attackers are meant to be dealing hits, the defenders are meant to be taking hits from your opponent. And, the inherent attributes of a defender are good HP to allow them to have the most hit points to take hits from your opponent, and also good either physical or special defense. And while there are some Pokemon that can do very well by taking hits from both the special and the physical side, generally the best defenders are the ones that fulfill only one of those roles, and you'll have another Pokemon on your team to fulfill the other side of the spectrum. So if you have a good physical defender, you'll need a good special defender to complement it. And I believe that also with this, there are 2 different types of defenders. There are the ones that just have really good stats, and there are the ones that have unique typing. For example, Blissey is only a normal type, so it doesn't take hits from anything really on the not very effective side or the immune side, except for Ghost. So that doesn't necessarily make it a great defender, but because of its really good HP and special defense, it's able to fulfill that role really well. Whereas a Pokemon, say like Ferrothorn, has excellent typing in the form of Grass Steel to make a lot of hits not very effective against it, which will then interpret to it being able to take a lot of hits because it won't be taking damage from those not very effective attacks, if you kind of get what I mean right there. But I felt like it's important to distinguish between those 2 kinds because people often just assume that high defense means good defense, even though you should be taking typing into account. And some items that you want to put on a defender generally would be something along the lines of Leftovers or Black Sludge if it's a poison type, for example. There isn't really anything other than those 2, maybe Rocky Helmet, but that's pretty much what you stick with a defender. Thirdly, we have what I'm going to refer to as the utility, which are all the Pokemon that basically have the behind-the-scenes role in battle. And by that I mean that they're not necessarily dealing damage to your opponent like an attacker would, or taking hits like a defender would, but they are finding other ways to wear down your team and also help you out in the process. For example, the most common utility role that any Pokemon can have is setting up Stealth Rock, because that is such a great move because it automatically deals damage to Pokemon anytime they come in, and it's not really something you have to think about once it's set up, but it's always important to have a Pokemon that can do that. Similarly, Toxic Spikes and regular Spikes are also very important utility roles that Pokemon can have in a battle. Similarly, on the more helpful side to you, are Pokemon that have something like Heal Bell to cure any status, something with Rapid Spin to get rid of entry hazards of your own, or that your opponent set up against you, or even something with Wish to pass on HP back from one Pokemon to another and keep your team healthy. Also, in this category, I'm going to classify the status inducers as also being utility, because I think status is such an important role in this game. Basically, anything that you can do to cripple your opponent is really good, and having those utility Pokemon that can either Toxic Stall with, Toxic and Protect, which I'm pretty sure every single Pokemon can do, except for Regigigas because it doesn't learn Protect, but it still has good defenses to Toxic Stall. But inflicting Paralysis through Thunder Wave, inflicting Burn, all those kinds of things, Confuse Ray even, are very important roles that a utility Pokemon can play on a team and make basically battling your team that much more difficult to deal with. And I think that this is probably my favorite role out of the 4 that I'm giving you because it's just so unique and annoying for your opponent. And fourth and finally, we have the Versatile, which are basically any Pokemon that can fulfill 2 out of the 3 roles that I just talked about. And now this can either be done through a really good move pool, really interesting typing, or just generally good overall stats all around, meaning that it has good HP, attack, defense, and speed, so it can pretty much do anything you need it to if you have something missing on the team you've already created. And generally for me, the Versatile are the last Pokemon that I make on a team, because I generally have, the Pokemon that I want to attack, and the Pokemon that I want to be defensive, and so the Versatile really leaves me some interesting options to use as the last slots on my team that will prove to synergize the whole team as a whole, and also prove to be annoying to my opponent in a variety of ways. And the most common role that a Versatile Pokemon will have is that of a utility/defender, because most Pokemon that can, Toxic Stall really well, or, status a Pokemon well, and, take advantage of that are the Pokemon that have high defense to go along with it. Similarly are the Pokemon that, set up entry hazards but also can defend, like a Hippowdon, which has really great physical defense and also access to Stealth Rock. Other things, combining them, you could have a good attacker/defender, such as a Pokemon, in my opinion, like Bouffalant, because it has really great defenses and also really good physical attack to make use of when it's attacking the opponent, but also take the hits at the same time. I think this is often referred to as a tank, but I don't really like that term too much. And also, you could have the attacker/utility, which would be something like an Infernape, which can set up Stealth Rock, but also retains its really good attack and speed to fulfill the role of being an attacker. But overall, these are probably second most unique type Pokemon on the team next to the utility, in my opinion. And they are often the most fun sets to make for me, because I find that exploring how a Pokemon can pretty much do everything is the most beneficial to really seeing how it can work. But that is pretty much it for this video. It'll be continued in part 2, where I believe I'm going to be talking about how to get started on actually set building, and I'll hopefully give you a lot of websites that'll help you out with doing so. But that's it for this video, guys, so take care and goodbye.